Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis, starting with Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, 8 lines from the bottom. The Gemara established the opinion of Rabbi Abahu when it says in the Torah, "You shall not eat," lo soichal or yo soichlu. It includes not only the prohibition of eating, but also prohibits having hana as well. The Gemara asks several questions from different places in the Torah that we see it says you shall not eat, and yet it's a mutter bahana. There the Gemara successfully defends Rabbi Abahu in all these cases by saying that there's a special inclusion allowing a heter for hana. The Gemara now suggests lema kitanoi. Let us suggest that Rabbi Abahu is on one side of a machlokes tanoim. It says in the Pasuk, I'll read you in its entirety, Daber el Bnei Yisrael, in regards to prohibited fats, chaylev, it says, speak to Bnei Yisrael, Lemor, kol chaylev, shor, vakesev, ve'ez, lo soichelu, you shall not eat the forbidden fats of these animals. The next Pasuk goes on to say, v'chaylev nevela, v'chaylev treifa, the chaylev of both a nevela and treifa, ye'ose lekol melacha, can be performed for any malacha, but you shall not eat them. Now says the Gemara, that which it states in the Pasuk that it can be used, the chaylev, for all types of malacha. What is this coming to include? Sheyachol lemelechas gavoya yehi muter, lemeches hedyot yehi aser. I might think that only the usage of malacha of gavoya for hektesh is mutter, since anyways you can take the chaylev and burn those chaylev on the mizbeach. Therefore, I might say then the kol malacha could also be used in regards to hektesh. However, lemeleches hedyot yehi, but for a non-hektesh purpose, it cannot be used. Therefore, Rabbi Yossi says, lekol malacha, doesn't say for malacha, but all malacha, the kol comes to include even those malachas that are used for hedyot. Rabbi Akiva says, sheyachol lemeleches hedyot, yehei tohor. I might think that the malacha for a hedyot is tohor, but lemeleches gavoy yehei tamei. But if I have the chaylev, it will be tamei for using meleches gavoya for hektesh. In other words, Rabbi Akiva says, I don't need to teach me something is then permissible behana. That anyways is permissible. The fact that it says, you shall not eat, does not include the prohibition of hana. But, says Rabbi Akiva, since indeed this chaylev is part of the nevela, and just like a nevela you cannot eat, it also is mitame. So I think that when it comes to meleches hedyot, then it is tahor. But meleches gavoya is tamei. And therefore, I need the pasuk to teach me tamulom lekol malacha, that all malacha says that it's tahor both in regards to hedyot and as well as meleches kodesh. The Gemara now explains, Rabbi Yossi haglili lituma ulatara lo istrikra. He does not need the pasuk to include that it is tahor. He doesn't need kol malach to say that this chaylev is tahor for both hedyot and hektesh. Ki istikra liisur ulaheter. What does he need it? To teach me that it is also going to be mutter behana, even in regards to malacha of hedyot. Rabbi Akiva iser heter lo ikra, whereas Rabbi Akiva does not need the pasuk to say that it's mutter behana, that we would already know. Ki iser kro letumul tahara. He needs the pasuk to say that they're both tor, bein hedyot, bein hektish. That's what the kol malacha came to teach me. On Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis at the very top. Ask the Gemara now to explain these two shitas of Rabbi Yossi HaGalili and Rabbi Akiva. My lav is it not in the following that they are arguing? The Rabbi Yossi HaGalili sovar lo soichelu is mashma bein iser achila bein iser hana. When it says lo soichelu, it doesn't just include the prohibition against eating the chaylev, but it also includes the iser hana. V'chi asa kra lemishroya lenevela behana huda asa. And therefore, it comes to then permit the hana. And therefore, we have kol malacha to teach me that. That's the shita of Rabbi Yossi HaGalili. In contrast, says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva, Sover Iser Achila Mashma, Iser Hana Loi Mashma. He says it's only Aser Bahana when it says Loi Soichelu. There's no reason to believe that it will also be Aser Bahana. V'chi Aser Kro Letuma Uvetara. What do we need the pasuk for? To say that it's also going to be Tohor. In other words, we then establish Rabbi Abohu, who says when it says you shall not eat, includes a prohibition of hana, just like Rabbi Yossi HaGalili. And Rabbi Akiva argues he's the other Tana on the other side that says no, that when it says lo soichelu, it just means you shall not eat, but iser hana, there's no iser hana, and therefore he would be the other side against Rabbi Abohu. The Gemara says no, you cannot explain it this way, that Rabbi Abohu is a machlokes amongst the Tanoim. The kuliyamo lo seichelu mashma bein iser achila bein iser hana. Everybody agrees that it includes an iser of hana, even Rabbi Akiva. And it is in the following that they are arguing. Rabbi Yossi HaGalili sav kishehutra nevela hi hutra chelba vegida lo hutra. When that pasuk of nevela stated, not only is it usher to eat, it had to go on and explain that it's mutter to then give to the ger and to sell to the nachri. Why do I have to state that? Because normally, lo seichelu, you shall not eat, includes a prohibition of hana. And therefore, according to the Shittas Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, when it said as matir nevela, it was only matir the hana of nevela in the pasuk, but it was not matir the hana of gid and chaylev. V'chi istrich kra. So what do we need the pasuk v'chi istrich kra for? Leheter hana hu de'asa, to teach me that the chaylev has a heter hana. Rabbi Akiva saw v'kishehutru nevela chelba v'gida nami hutru. Whereas Rabbi Akiva says when it was matir the nevela, included in the nevela is also the chaylev and the gid. That also is included, and therefore when it was matir the hana of the nevela, that you can give it to the ger, you can sell it to the nachri, it included not only the meat of the nevela, but also the chaylev and the gid of the nevela as well. What therefore do we need the pasuk for, according to Rabbi Akiva then? Letumo letara, to then teach me that the nevela, since indeed nevela is osir to be eaten, it's also going to be osir, it's also mitame. Therefore, I might think that since the nevela meat is mitame, therefore the gid and the chaylev is also mitame. Because after all, it's similar to the meat, as we saw in regards to the heter of hoina. This mutter behana, because it's similar to the meat. Therefore, we have to have a pasuk to teach me that although the nevela was only going to be mitame for the meat, but the gid and the chaylev, or in this case the chaylev specifically, is not going to be then mitame. That's Rabbi Akiva Shita. Rabbi Yossi HaGalili eshichon chaylev deshar yerachmane behana elagid neima the oser. Ask the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, who finds that there's a heter by the chaylev, that indeed it's mutter behana. That pasuk comes to say that kol malacha, it's referring to chaylev. That's the pasuk that we brought in the beginning of this amud. So where do we see that it's mutter also bahana the gid? Answers the Gemara, ibois eima hachinami dasa. You're right. The gid itself is aser bahana. That which Rabbi Yossi HaGalili said, nevela is mutter bahana, and we now have a pasuk that says the chaylev is mutter bahana. But the gid we have no way of explaining that it's mutter bahana, it still remains asr bahana. E-boys aim, but alternatively you can explain that yes, indeed, it is also mutter bahana. Because Maisi la mikal v'chomer, Rabbi Yossi has a kal v'chomer. As follows, Ma chaylev she'anush kares mutter bahana. Chaylev carries with it a chiyuv kares, and yet it's mutter bahana. Gid she'eno anush kares lo kol sheken. Gid is merely a lav, whereby it'll be a chiyuv of malchus, much more lenient type of punishment. So therefore, if chaylev, which has the punishment of kares, is mutter bahana, then kol shekain gid shall be mutter bahana too. Ask the Gemara, the Rabbi Shimon the Osar, but Rabbi Shimon, which we learned before, says that gid is asr bahana because it's not noisein tam. Why doesn't he learn from this kal v'chomer to teach me that it indeed is mutter bahana? Answers the Gemara, because Rabbi Shimon has a pircha on this kal v'chomer. He can ask the following: granted that chaylev is aser to be eaten, the chaylev of behema, but the chaylev of chaya doesn't have a prohibition. So Tomer begid shelo hutar michlalo eitzel chaya, whereas gid is more severe in a sense because gid, we don't make a distinction between a behema and a chaya. So therefore he would ask a pirch on this kal v'chomer, you're trying to explain to me that chaylev is so chamor because it carries with it a punishment of kares, whereby gid is only a chiyuv of malchus. So therefore if chaylev, which is considered to be mutter bahana and much more severe than kol shekain, gid should be mutter bahana. On that, Rabbi Shimon would say, but wait a second, there's a chumrah by gid that does not exist by chaylev, because chaylev is mutter by chaya, it's only asr by behema, whereas gid is asr by both by behema and chaya. V'ida, but now the Gemara wants to know, then Rabbi Yossi Galili, how does he have a kal v'chomer if indeed there's a pircha, as Rabbi Shimon just explained? Says the Gemara, because behema ka'amrinon. Rabbi Shimon says, we're talking about behema in this verse. The verse that we began the Amud with, that states the chaylev is asr to eat, that verse is speaking about chaylev specifically of a behema. It says, the behema of an eiz, of a keves, those are the behemoths that we're talking about. Not talking about the of a chaya. It says specifically, shor, kesef, and eiz. And therefore, since we're talking about behema, within behema itself, we can make then the kal v'chomer between chaylev and say if chaylev, which carries with it an anush kares, can go ahead and be mutter bahana, then kol shekain, the gid, that also is much more lenient punishment, certainly should be mutter bihana. The Gemara now says behema mihas. It just concludes behema kamrino, behema mihas lo ishtari, and therefore that what we're talking about in behema, in regards to behema lo ishtari, and therefore within behema itself we have the kal v'chomer, says Rabbi Yossi Hagalili. Says the Gemara now, michdi oisvinu kol hanikroi. Let us see, says the Gemara. We asked on Rabbi Abo from all of these different places, in different psukim, vishaninu, and we came to explain out how all of these cases are not going to be a kasha on Rabbi Abo's thesis, who says that when it says you cannot eat, it's also asr behano. We've explained in those verses that there's a gilui specifically showing that there is a heter behano. Chizki, Rabbi Abo, my pliki. What is the machlokes in Chizki and Rabbi Abo? They both end up saying that which is going to be asr behana, they both would agree, and that which is mutter bahana, they also agree. In other words, that which Rabbi Abo might have said that when it says you shall not eat includes also a prohibition of getting hana, and therefore, if it found a verse to say that there's a gilu that you can have hana, so that's what Rabbi Chizkiah also says. So nobody's arguing. There's no argument between Chizkiah and Rabbi Abo in regards to the outcome. So the Gemara says, what are they arguing about? You're going to say, because the case of chametz on Pesach, according to the Rabbanan, that says asr bahana, ubeshor haniska v'aliba the divrei hakol. In the case of shor haniska, that everybody agrees that that's also asr bahana. So in both these cases, Isser Hana. Says the Gemara, Chizkiya nafik le milo ye ochel. Where does Chizkiya know that's Asr Bahana? He says from the pasuk lo ye ochel, in a passive sense, it says it shall not be eaten. To conclude, not only is it Asr to eat, it's also Asr Bahana. Rabbi Abo nafik le min nevela. Whereas Rabbi Abo learns it out from the fact that the nevela had to explain that it's mutter to give the nevela to a ger and to sell it to a nachri, because even though it says you shall not eat, it includes you shall not have hana, but there's an exception because it was mefaret. So they both are ultimately saying the same thing, but they're learning it from different places. To which the Gemara says, Michti. The Gemara asks, Bein lamar, asurim bahana. Whether it's according to Rabbi Abo or Chizkiya, they both say it's asur bahana. They just learn from a different way. As my beinai, what is the practical difference between these two opinions? Since ultimately they're both saying that's asur bahana. Explains the Gemara, Ika beinayu, their difference lies in the following, the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Chulin shenishchatu be'azara. When chulin is nishchatu be'azara, what is the din? According to the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, Chizkiya savar lo yei ochel lemu'utei hani. Chizkiya says that the fact that it says lo yei ochel comes to exclude these two things that we mentioned before, chametz ba'pesach, which is asur bahana, as well as shor haniska, which is asur bahana, whereby it frees up another verse, oisoi, whereby he understands that the Shita Rabbi Yehuda is saying is a deraisa, because he has the pasuk oisoi to teach me that it's excluded. Whereas Rabbi Abo Sovar oisoi lemeute hani, the word oisoi comes to exclude these two places where it's asur bana, namely Pesach, chametz on Pesach, and the fact that shor haniska is asur bahana. Hani chulin shenishchnu ba'azara lav de'oraisa ninu, and therefore the only way that we know that chulin shenishchnu ba'azara is not a freed up verse. We have no verse for that. So according to this shita of Rabbi Abo, Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's only midirabanan, and therefore the nafka meaning between Chizkiya and Rabbi Abo comes out the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Again, according to Chizkiya, it's diaraisa chulin shenishchnu ba'azara. According to Rabbi Abo, it's midirabanan.